I would love to welcome in our first guest. He has been at the center of some challenges from Cherokee County for going on a period of time now. And so let me welcome in Richard Jordan. Thank you for joining us. As I brought you in, I mentioned that there has been controversy in Cherokee County going back now a couple of years for attempts to apparently come after you, I'll call it for the moment. And I want to call this out as we get started here. Just bear with me for a second. This is an article that I wrote a couple of years ago when the director of elections in Cherokee County attempted to have felony charges brought against you when you asked a question or two when you were in the polling place. Stood quietly by. We've seen video. The video is still available within this article. If folks wish to look it up, it's still up on the Georgia Record. But they can see that you're simply standing there and you had asked a question, and then they decided to come after you. So it appears to be happening again, and we wanted to bring you on and find out what in the heck is going on in Cherokee County. So please, let me turn it over to you.
Well, Bill, thank you. And I think in about 4 or 5 minutes, I could very succinctly describe to you my story, if that would be okay.
Sure, please.
So my polling incident response to these criminal allegations is simple and direct. The complaint addresses an incident in Cherokee County, Georgia, where I was falsely accused of disrupting a polling location during early voting on August the 26th of 2025. The allegations appear to be a form of bureaucratic lawfare aimed at damaging my reputation, civic involvement, and affiliation with the conservative Republican Party. So this stems from my prior efforts, as you mentioned, to promote election integrity, potentially involving a conspiracy among election officials, staff, and a partisan legal counsel from DeKalb County, which may violate federal and or state RICO charges. So a little bit about the background is, the conflict originated from a 2022 press conference, as you covered, organized by Truth Seekers, a group of Cherokee County citizens concerned about election integrity. Now, how novel is that? As spokesman, I presented a citizen-initiated petition to Cherokee County Board of Elections authorized under the Georgia Election Code, but it contained 150 sworn affidavits from 42 precincts. This petition requested a paper ballot hand count to verify the accuracy of the Dominion voting equipment during future elections. So despite 2 years of similar requests during monthly Board of Election meetings, the election director refused to fulfill her oath and would not even sign for the transmittal letter at this press conference or even acknowledge the petition for board review. Rather, the sworn affidavits were discarded, Bill, fueling a perceived vendetta against me for my advocacy in election integrity and transparency. So this DeKalb County partisan attorney also, she's repeatedly provided erroneous advice to the board and staff, contributing her known bias actions. And I've got support information for that. But this second criminal complaint follows the first criminal complaint, which transpired in 2022 during a similar early voting encounter when the Cherokee County Elections Director, along with her staff and under the advice of her legal counsel, used lawfare against a political opponent. So in 2022, it was alleged that I had committed 3 felonies and 2 misdemeanors by asking the same question of a trained poll worker. So the majority state election board members at the time favored such aggressive lawfare tactics and refused to drop one of the misdemeanors, but rather referred the criminal allegation to the state attorney general for prosecution. Now, this current polling incident, I call it polling incident 2.0, as a longtime precinct chairman, a poll watcher, an active Republican Party member. I'm even the chairman of the Georgia 7th District Congressional District. But I arrived early at the voting site on August the 26th of 2025. This was 4 or 5 months ago. and committed to election integrity and building voter trust, I sought clarification on procedures to inform not only myself, but other electors addressing low turnout due to skepticism in the prescribed process of exercising a citizen's right to vote his conscience. No other citizen witnesses were available. Electronic recording equipment is prohibited, and only paid poll workers loyal to the director were present during the encounter. So after requesting, then receiving permission, I politely asked a trained poll worker 2 legitimate questions. Is the Cherokee County Commissioner's election being held at this specific early voting location? And number 2, how do I know for certain that this QR code accurately reflects my candidate of choice? That was it. And for that, I've had 2 felonies alleged against me. But the poll worker, she stated that she did not know the answer to the second question and could not look at my QR code printed on the ballot. So as I approached the tabulator, I deposited my ballot, I applied my I voted sticker, and I immediately exited the building without further interaction, avoiding a poll manager who was aggressively approaching me. So that was it, and I later found, though, that evidence suggests poll workers were coached by election director Andover to monitor troublemakers, particularly those mentioning the QR code, including myself. Dover had even previously issued an all points bulletin to the Cherokee County Sheriff, several municipal police agencies, and all public school campus agencies to be on the lookout for Richard Jordan. So you can see how all this began to coalesce together. But the instant bill violated my constitutional rights of free speech, right to petition the government, and other misconduct that took place. And I've got that succinctly here in these 4 points. Number 1, my First Amendment free speech was violated. They suppressed my legitimate questions in a polling place despite receiving prior permission to ask a question. Secondly, federal RICO conspiracy laws, I think, were violated. Coordinated intimidation by election officials and partisan legal counsel to silence dissent. Thirdly, libel and slander, filing frivolous charges without evidence damaging my reputation. And then maladministration, failure to sign the transmittal letter for the 2022 petition, breaching her oath of office. And lastly, making false statements alleging criminal felony violations where there were none to occur. So that's my story in a nutshell. And not to get long-winded, but if you've got any questions, I'm ready, willing, and able.
You know me, I've got a million questions. So
your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
One, I want to clarify something about your background. You were a past, as I recall, a magistrate judge in the state of Georgia. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was elected in 1980 as the youngest judge to ever serve the people of the state of Georgia. Then I was appointed for my second term as a state magistrate, and I'm still a state magistrate emeritus. I'm just not on the bench at this time.
I wanted to make sure people understand that, because there is a certain, I hope, with folks that have served in the status of a judge, especially going back a period of time, there is a certain expectation that I think people hold about the background and the veracity of the statements made by folks like you.
Well, so we're there to determine probable cause, take a sworn statement and determine if there's probable cause to issue the criminal warrant or there's not.
Yep. So, very interesting in this regard. So, you mentioned that there was communication apparently between Andover and others, and that this might broach the realm of potentially RICO charges. Now, these are not, when you speak of that, those aren't charges against you. Those would be charges against these other individuals involved.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's right. What I shared with you was my response to what's transpiring. And yes, there will be a complaint brought, a counter complaint brought up. And I would rather I've tried to just drop everything after this first incident, but apparently they're just intent on making an example out of me as one of the truth seekers to try to silence dissent. And I may not be the smartest guy in the room, Bill, but I am persistent. I don't give up.
That's true. So it strikes me as unbelievable that folks would be pressing this type of an issue, especially given what's come out in the last 3 months regarding Fulton's ballots, regarding some of the other machine discoveries that have been made. This goes well beyond a simple question asked in a polling place. And in fact, unless I'm mistaken, in other training that has been given to poll workers and poll watchers, residents in the polling place to vote, which you were, yes, you were there to vote, are allowed to ask questions. They can ask a question. Then nobody says, oh, you cannot speak once you enter the polling place. You're allowed to ask questions. So it strikes me that you asked 2 questions, as you said. So if you're allowed to ask questions, why would that create a felony? Well, is it because the content of your questions was undesirable to certain parties? I don't know, but trying to bring those two understandings together. You're allowed to ask questions, but not those 2 questions, strikes me as incredibly wrong. What do you think?
Well, as you know, this has been an issue on the front burner for 5 or 6 years now. No one knows if that QR code accurately reflects our candidate of choice. You don't know. I don't know. Brad Raffensperger doesn't know. Now, yes, there is the English name printed below the QR code, but I don't know that that's part of the QR code that's actually read by the tabulator. So that's right. What is at issue. So I have a genuine concern, and I want to know for myself, but also for my family members, my friends, my grandchildren. I mean, I have vested interest in this thing called the constitutional republic. But secondly, we've got reason to believe that there is developed a conspiracy to try to silence the truth seekers, which we're trying to do is ensure election integrity and transparency in these elections. And I am being accosted, especially in the first incident when I had 2 armed police officers show up at my side when I was perfecting my vote by. They gave me consent to fill out a complaint form so I could find out from my Board of Elections here in Cherokee County why we continue to use a QR code on the Dominion ballot marking device that had already been adjudicated in a federal court of law. And even the Georgia legislature has passed laws banning the QR code. But for some reason, the Secretary of State is got permission to use that with a court order through the midterm election of 2026. So we've got more questions than can be answered. And all I want to know is, how do I know for certain that QR code accurately reflects my candidate of choice? I did not ask that question in an antagonistic way. Some of my best friends are poll workers. You know, I like poll workers. I'm a poll watcher. We have lunch together when I man the polls every election. And they're some of my best friends. I've got other friends within the Republican Party that are poll workers. So for the election director to try to say that I am, that they can't afford to have their poll workers ridiculed or whatever they're saying through or intimidated. All I did was ask one question. On this polling incident 2.0, I asked 2 questions, of course, about the commissioner's race and then about the ballot. But the first one, I asked one question. And of course, as I'd mentioned to you, Bill, those 3 felonies were dismissed. And for some reason, Andover, under the guidance and counsel of her DeKalb County attorney that's brought into Cherokee County, what I believe is to try to undermine the last of the bastion of conservatism here in Metro Atlanta, Cherokee County. So there's a lot more questions to be answered. And through the process of discovery, through open records requests, which thus far we've not been able to get them to release the open records as required by law, and that will determine how we proceed from here.
I have 2 more questions for you. One is you'd mentioned several times this DeKalb attorney. That's Ann Brumbaugh, is that correct?
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
Ann Brumbaugh was at the state election board meeting on the day that David Cross's complaint was heard regarding the unsigned tabulator tapes. Those tabulator tapes became then the key to unlocking the fact that 300,000 ballots in Fulton County were certified when they should not have been. And Ann Brumbaugh made some comments prior to David Cross's testimony, seemingly to try to get that to be overlooked, dismissed in
That's
some
correct.
way. I forget her exact comment. I'm paraphrasing, but the point is, she did not push forward to a resolution. She seemed to say, we've already resolved all this and there's nothing to see here, you know? And so one question is, how did a DeKalb attorney become involved in a matter in Cherokee County?
Well, it's the previous board members in Cherokee County thought it would be politically correct to have not only an outside attorney come in from a counterbalance the conservatism of Cherokee County, who happens to be the attorney happens to be a leftist, and she has a leftist agenda. It's been proven. Matter of fact, if you'll remember, Bill, the Georgia Record covered a situation in Cherokee County 2 or 3 years ago, and we've got you published an article with 12 points on there. Within 6 or 8 minutes, she began to rant about and even belittle her own board members that she represented, which is a violation against the Georgia Bar Association. But there's about 12 violations and misleading comments she made that were not true. And we want to bring that out and let that be published as well.
I was actually in attendance during the state election board meeting when your original case from two and a half years ago was heard. And literally within minutes, the board took action to eliminate 2 of the charges entirely, changed the third. I believe they changed it from criminal to a civil thing, and they did refer it. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was largely done away with as well. Is that correct?
Well, it's up to the state attorney general as well as the local DA in Cherokee County, and they know me as a part of the community. I'm a family man. I've got a business I run here. I've been involved in civic matters, certainly through this election integrity, but turning the vote out. And by the way, we have about 75 to 80% of the ballots are pulled by a Republican here in Cherokee County. So I think that's one of the reasons that they've allowed a leftist attorney to come in, or encouraged a leftist attorney representing the Board of Elections to come in and try to, I don't know, is she trying to dilute our effectiveness? I don't know, but we've got to get to the bottom of that. And I think this disclosure that you made in this article 2 or 3 years ago needs to be reevaluated and come to the surface once again.
Yeah, it certainly seems so. Richard, we will look forward to hearing more as the next steps here progress. What is the next event that may happen with all of this?
Well, on March the 18th, I've been summoned before the state election board to determine if there's indeed any probable cause to refer me to the state attorney general for prosecution on 2 felonies. And, I trust the court system. I am an American, red-blooded through and through. I believe in our constitutional process. If they want to accuse me of something wrongly, then the burden of proof is upon them. I'm innocent until proven guilty. And there was no criminal activity involving just merely asking a question regarding the validity of this ballot marking device in the QR code.
Yep. We anticipate publishing an article in the Georgia Record on all this that we've covered this morning as well. So folks can read further there. We'll likely link it back to the previous article that, as you say, calls out the actions of Ann Dover in Cherokee as the executive director of their elections, and also Ann Brumbaugh as the advisor to the Cherokee, both Board of Elections and County Commission. So thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances, but we appreciate you being here.
Yes. Good to be with you, Bill. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Take care.